The 2025 LA Galaxy are off to their worst start in their history and are seemingly destined towards another wooden spoon, barring a complete turn of form in the second half of the season. But hey, let's look at the bright side. We have a great chance of getting that number one super draft pick next year. Hello, hola, and buenas, everyone. And yeah, welcome back to another special edition of La Cuna Galaxiana called Los Gatacticos. And yeah, I mean, look, at this point, we're reaching to try to find any positives that we can take out of this season. I mean, I feel like maybe we do have some things, though, to be hopeful about in the not yet or not too distant, but yet very distant future for the LA Galaxy. Hence the title of this video, with a possible light at the end of this tunnel for this LA Galaxy season. And well, let's just focus on the positives today. In today's episodes, we're gonna take the glass half full approach, have selective memory, and forget about the 15 or so games of the first half of the season. And like I said, we're gonna focus on the positives today, and take a little bit deeper of a look at some encouraging signs over the last few matches that should cause some hope and optimism for LA Galaxy fans heading into the second half of the season and into 2026. So again, thank you again for tuning into Los Gatacticos. If you enjoy this episode or any of our past work, or you like Alex more than me, or even better, like me more than Rob, please go ahead, guys, and hit that subscribe button. We just reached 600 subs on the last show, so super grateful for all of your support and are well on our way to 700 subs. And I know with your support, we can get there by the start of Leagues Cup, hopefully by the end of July. So guys and gals, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. And the next time we are on the main pod, of course, that is on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So hope to see you guys there. Now, before we go any further, let me introduce myself as one of your co-hosts. My name is Ananda Kirana, one half of La Cuna Galaxiana. And as I always say, you can always follow me, block me, or stalk me. My handle is at Ananda Galaxiana. And of course, you can always engage with myself and Rob online at La Cuna Galaxiana and all your social platforms. This is the 6th edition of our show, guys. So, and we haven't done one since the beginning of the season. After that San Diego loss, unfortunately, because we were trying to, Alex and I were trying to re-up our contracts with the powers that be at the Lacuna Network. So again, thanks to your support, we were able to sign on for a few more episodes, and we haven't gotten canceled. So I just mentioned him a second ago, but the other half of La Cuna Galaxiana is taking the night off. So with me today, of course, the other Minister of Defense, El Profe, Alex Ruiz of the Galactic Tribune. Alex, man, how you doing? And first, of course, shout out where the people can find you online.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Alex Ruiz. You can find my work at the Galactic Tribune at thegalactictribune.org and on Twitter X at ALXRuiz15. But yeah, Don, it's been a long time. Last time we chatted was after that San Diego game. We were probably hoping there might be a win and give us something to talk about. And that didn't happen for about 3-4 months. But hey, we're finally at the midpoint of the season. The Galaxy finally have one win. I
Hey,
think
there you
we're
go.
all shocked, surprised about it. Nonetheless, we're back. We're gonna, I'm excited to get back to these tactical breakdowns and, talk about maybe some positives and reasons why you should still be watching the LA Galaxy in 2025.
Yeah, like I said, this is going to be a glass half full kind of show. We're going to be looking at the positive. We're going to look forward, Alex. Looking in the rearview mirror is only looking at traffic in and behind, but nothing else. It's about moving forward and looking forward. But before we get to that forward part, you know how we roll here in La Cuna Galaxiana. I just wanted you to take a little peek in your retrovisor, just one last time. But if you think about the first half of the season, you know how we do this one-word match reaction. What is your one-word reaction to the first half of the 2025 season so far?
I think the one word that comes to mind is fall off when it comes to player performances. A lot of guys across the board not really having great statistical seasons, not many goals or assists out there. A lot of players like Yoshida, McCarthy, maybe Yamane a little bit. They've regressed a little bit. Paintsill obviously has been dealing with injury. Peck as well just hasn't been able to find that killer form. So yeah, I think fall off is just the right word to kind of capture everything that's going on. I mean, going from champions to bottom of the standings across all 30 teams. I mean, there's no better word to kind of describe what's going on than that.
Yeah, I think what we're hoping for in terms of that fall off too, Alex, is, we use that term, you bandied around, regression to the mean. I hope though that what we saw in the first half of the season is not the mean. I hope it's probably somewhere in between, or maybe hopefully in some players' cases back to that form, especially our DPs where we count on them for production, right, Alex? So it'll be interesting to see what their level is actually at. If Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsill, if those were one hit wonders or one season wonders, or if they can continue that form into this year. So, anyways, guys, before we dive into sort of the meat and potatoes of our episode here, we do want to dive into some observations and some bright spots that we talked about that are cause for hope. But before we get there, Alex, you wanted to tee up this conversation by kind of looking back at the history books a little bit and talking about sort of how this situation is a bit similar to the situation that we faced in 2023 in particular. And of course, in that season, it was very much a season riddled with not only injuries, but the boycott, everything happening off the pitch. But you think that there's something that we can glean from that season to apply to this current context that we're in today?
Yeah, you mentioned it or not. I mean, 2023 was a pretty ugly season when you come to the fan boycotts, you go to the transfer ban, you go to the injuries to so many players. Just maybe the disappointment, I would say, of the previous year having gone to the playoffs where everything is looking up and up, and then a drastic fall down in 2023. But that season did lay the seeds for the 2024 MLS Cup winning campaign when you look at the players acquired and also just the time that players were given where we know in MLS there's no pressure of relegation. There's no pressure, you know,
Right.
whatever. If you're last place, you're last place, and nothing else will happen. Sure, it's your pride that will take that shot. And obviously, every player is a competitor. They want to win. That is their goal. But at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about playing in a second division. They can worry about developing. They can worry about getting reps, and that's essentially what we saw in 2023. And I bring that up because you look at players like Maya Yoshida, who came in, halfway through that season, where he became the defensive anchor in 2024. You look at Edwin Cerrillo, a very young prospect from FC Dallas, that once he came to the Galaxy, he was kind of able to learn the system right. It was maybe a little, I wouldn't say rough was a word, but it took a while for Cerrillo to become one of those players that you would notice the dirty work, you would notice those progressions going forward. And lo and behold, 2024, he proved he can be a starter on an MLS caliber winning team. Then you go to Fagundes, a great depth piece that they got that season, a leader within the locker room, somebody who can, rally players around and make the environment better and, be another depth piece that Greg Vanney can deploy on the wings or in the center of the field. Also, too, one that kind of flies under the radar is, if you guys still remember, Lucas Caligari, the U22 right back. He was a quality player, and that was kind of the first time we saw Greg Vanney tinker with the inverted fullback, which is essentially what Mickey Amane became when he joined the club in 2024. He was so essential to keeping possession, to having good quality defensive structures off the ball, being able to kind of, prove that Greg Vanney needed a very technical right back. You had Julian Araujo for years who had great athleticism, great speed, but the technical ability kind of just wasn't there. Caligari brought that in 2023, and I think Greg Vanney really liked that a lot, having a player with those kind of attributes. And lo and behold, go to 2024, the Galaxy signed Mickey Amane, and immediately he's playing as an inverted fullback. You can see he's calm on the ball. He's great in possession. He's just an all-around great soccer player. And, Caligari obviously suffered that ACL injury, and the Galaxy did not sign him up for because they had a buy clause in that loan. But it laid the seeds for Greg Vanney to see that he tactically needed to have a technical right back. And that Mickey Amane last year was arguably one of the best players on that season. Super consistent, always playing at a good quality level on both ends of the pitch. And, 2023, again, not going to be very memorable. Aside from the Rose Bowl game that season, there's not a lot, when you look back at that year that you remember. But it did help plant the seeds of a, MLS Cup winning team. And maybe in 2025 that we're seeing that again.
Yeah, I like the way you put that, Alex. And it's funny, we were having a conversation with Lex, LA Galaxy 310 on the other day. We had him on the main pod, and he said something interesting in that when us as fans, when you're in it, when you're in that 16 game winless streak, when you're in that tough stretch, it's tough, right? It's tough to look at the bigger picture. You want results now, but I think the way you framed it was correct, and I think that's the way the organization is looking at it, and probably taking a step back as fans. If we look at this prospect now long term, we're hoping that these next few months serve as a, if not anything, a bridge to the next 2 or 3 years of the LA Galaxy, right? Like you said, Greg Vanney and Will Kuntz sort of planting those seeds in these players. And we're gonna, you know, talk about and expose some of these bright spots that we've been talking about. But at least, like, hopefully, us as Galaxy fans, we can take a step back and sort of see how the second half of the season can serve as a bridge for long-term success, hopefully, and back to MLS Cup, right, which is where we want to be. So I do like the way you framed that up. But Alex, why don't we go ahead and jump into the key point? But guys, just as a reminder again, to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Again, that would greatly appreciate or greatly help us out and would be greatly appreciated. So, Alex, first key point and first thing that we wanted to highlight, man, is I think a huge one for this year, which is that midfield sort of balance, but more importantly, that partnership that's starting to now develop between Edwin Cerrillo and newcomer Lucas Sanabria.
Yeah, and look, the LA Galaxy, they signed Sanabria to a 5-year contract at the start of the season because they want him to be that future midfield, right? You had departures of Gaston Brugman, Mark Delgado, players who, were at that age where they understood the game, they knew how to read the game, they understood what Greg Vanney instructed out of them. Now you're going to get a raw prospect in Sanabria who coming in, had just played, I think, 1 year professional soccer under his belt. So again, reminder, this guy is very, very raw, and he's still getting used to this profession. Nonetheless, we are starting to see a little bit more of that Cerrillo Sanabria, double six work, Sanabria kind of playing as an 8 at times. We're seeing that more and more, and that's exactly what Greg Vanney and the LA Galaxy coaching staff want to see. They want to see Sanabria kind of get out of his shell because he's a very shy personality. He's a guy who you won't hear a lot of words from, but they want him to be able to kind of be free flowing, be able to express himself on the field. And we're going to look at some clips right now that kind of show that, Sanabria is making some progress, but also there is work to do. And these are the things we should be watching for improvements in for the rest of the season. And if these things happen that we're going to highlight, then I think he'll be well prepared for next season.
Yeah, sure. So let's run into the clips. I know we've got a set of 3 here. So Alex, take it away for the first clip.
Yeah, so whenever this clip loads here, so look at Sanabria, right? He's kind of at the edge. Gabriel Pexon on an island right here. He's going to pause. Most times you see Mark Delgado making a run, but Sanabria kind of hesitates a little bit. And by the time he makes that run, you're running into space where there's 1, 2, 3 RSL players. And it's kind of just, I wouldn't say a waste of a run, but he's not reading the space correctly. Once again, you want Sanabria to kind of fill that space, be able to run and attack those areas so you can create combinations of play. We saw that a lot last year with Mark Delgado, where with Peck, Yamane, and Delgado, those three would be fluid and rotate into those spaces. Sanabria, as we mentioned, very shy. I feel like there's, lacking some confidence when it comes to, should I be making this run? How aggressive do I want to be? And again, that's totally normal considering he's learning a new system. Again, back at Nacional, where Sanabria played last year, he wasn't asked to be that kind of player. He was asked to be more of a, win the ball back, have that high work rate, and he does have those qualities. But now Greg Vanney's trying to develop him into a possession player, a player who can kind of read what's going on around him, understand what spaces to attack, what places to go without the ball. And that's that evolution that Vanney wants to see, because the Galaxy are very much missing Mark Delgado this year, a guy who understood what runs to make, what spaces to take up. Sanabria right now, he seems very hesitant to kind of make those decisions. But as the season goes on, as he gains confidence with his teammates, I 100% believe that he can be able to kind of take that next step. We're being able to see him be more involved in possession. Because again, Greg Vanney's teams are all about, reading spaces, attacking spaces, using overloads. And if Sanabria is able to do that, then you're going to see him take that next step.
And speaking of spaces, I mean, we're going to pull up again. You talk about spatial awareness and understanding distances, right, Alex?
Yeah, exactly. And this topic here is about the Cerrillo and Sanabria double pivot here, right? You can see both players kind of take up a similar angle, similar space. Sanabria, and you can even see Cerrillo point. He's late to kind of attack that space, and Yoshida has to play hopeful ball, and the Galaxy lose possession in their own half. And that's not what Greg Vanney and the coaching staff want to be able to see. And if you pull up that clip again, you'll be able to kind of see that Cerrillo kind of points at him, tells him, hey, head over there. But Lucas, he's kind of not engaged in the play, not very engaged in the buildup. He has to be, because the Galaxy want to be able to play out of this. They need players that, can help move the ball forward. And Sanabria quickly realizes his mistake, has to run back. But again, not good enough, not able to kind of understand the situation. And the Galaxy really need him to be aware in these situations because yes, you have Cerrillo, who's a very tidy and decent player in possession, but he can't do it all alone. And you need Sanabria to understand and read those spaces a lot better and a lot quicker because it is there. It's not a extremely hard thing for him to juggle on the pitch. It's just about being aware, being engaged. And I think Greg Vanny and the rest of the coaching staff is showing him clips like the one we just saw where, hey, you and Edwin are kind of taking the same space. Look to be an outlet for someone else. Look for a space where you can run into it that, maybe you can move the possession forward. And I think that's the one thing you kind of need to watch for Lucas Naira this year is how does he make himself stand out in a good way in possession? Because so far he's very tidy, very close to Cerrillo. He needs to stand out if he wants to be an impact player in the midfield.
Yeah. Well, and then credit to Lucas Sanabria because later on in that game, he did exactly what you said, Alex. He started to show a little bit of personality, understand that spatial awareness, and keep that concentration level to help the LA Galaxy get that goal, the first goal, which I'll pull up here. Again, I'll let you narrate through this
Yeah, you
one.
see Sanabria's all the way back here on this clip. As the attack starts, Nelson moves the ball forward, and Nascimento makes a darting run to kind of create some space. He does so, and look at Lucas. He's just running into that space nonstop, and boom, easy
Yeah,
goal.
really
Gets
good.
rewarded for keeping that run, gets rewarded for being aggressive. And again, it's not like he's leaving the midfield completely. Edwin Cerrillo is back there playing as that defensive midfielder or a third center back at times. So Sanabria has that liberty to go forward. And again, this is just great play from Sanabria to anticipate what Nascimento is going to do. Keep running, not jogging. He's running into that space, and he gets rewarded for the goal. And ultimately, that's what leads to the Galaxy's first win. When Sanabria is aggressive, good things happen. And the Galaxy need to be able to see that more and more as the season goes on because, as I mentioned earlier, they signed him for 5 years. They're hoping this kid can really be able to take it to the next level and be able to kind of be that next Mark Delgado in a way, right? Where you have a player who can run for days, who is going to tackle, and who's going to read spaces and know how to help the Galaxy attack for hopefully the next 5 years.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I wanted to highlight was just I think the intelligence level of Mark Delgado was uncanny, and he completely understood sort of where to be. Greg talked about it many times. He talked about Mark Delgado as the great equalizer. And if I pull up these tactics boards for a second, Alex, I mean, these are the things, sort of the spatial awareness, the half spaces in between the lines that Lucas Sanabria needs to recognize. You talked about Edwin Cerrillo. When we are in phases of possession where Edwin Cerrillo has to drop back again, oppositions are going to place a little differently. So in this particular case, RSL played with two strikers, so they press up with two men right up top, and they try to set up two banks of four behind that, but sort of forming a high confrontation line. And it was up to Lucas Sanabria to find those gaps, to find those spaces in between the lines, in between the forwards and the midfielders. And so it's an understanding of where to be right in those spaces. But then you're going to have other games where you talked about it earlier, the right back tucking in and playing sort of that almost like second DM like role. So then Lucas Sanabria has to push up a little bit forward and go into that second line of half spaces, right? And learn how to interplay with Yamane, with Peck, even with Nacimiento, because he likes playing those 1-2s, and start understanding those patterns of play around the edge of the box in the final third. And I think over time, against certain opposition, we're going to start to see that. And of course, Alex, we've been talking about this in the context of a double pivot. I think he's going to have to also understand defensively now what are his duties based off of what the game calls for and what the oppositions call for. So if you're going to have a marauding left back like we see on the screen there, he's going to have to offer enough protection to his right back, whoever that is, Cuevas or Yamane, and also communicate with Garces or Zanka, because you don't want to leave your center back either 1v1 and have a late run come into the box, right? Which we've seen happen earlier this year. But of course, you got to think about too, if you're Lucas Sanabria and you recognize that you have a player like, let's say, Diego Luna or Denny Bawanga, and you need to cover again in those transition moments and in those 1v1 moments to cover your right back, he's going to have to understand that position too defensively and where he needs to be. And so I think that's going to be interesting, man. The development of that between him and Cerrillo will be really interesting, again, based off of the opposition and how Greg wants to attack each opposition. So again, intelligence, I think, is a key word for his development moving forward.
Yeah, and you pointed out on that right-hand side, those combination plays. The Galaxy love to attack down that right-hand side. A lot of times this season, we've seen a Peck and Yamane kind of two-man game, kind of like they're playing the pick and roll in a basketball. But if you add Sanabria in there and he's able to start building combinations, he's able to, understand where to be in those situations. The Galaxy attack, and especially Gabriel Peck, he's going to flourish. He's going to not have the pressure of, having to play make for himself, play make everything down that right hand side. You have a guy like Sanabria who will make Peck's job easier because if Sanabria is making runs like we saw for the first goal, teams are going to have to respect that. And he's going to
Yeah.
have that gravitational pull where he's going to pull defenders out, where defenders are going to have to keep an eye on him. That allows Peck to potentially be in, one-on-one situations, right? A lot of the times teams are, double, almost triple teaming him. If you're able to add Sanabria making those runs as well, and he's able to make the right decision in the final third every time, that's going to not only help Sanabria gain confidence, that's going to help Peck score goals and assists. And that's what the Galaxy need, because without Peck, putting up numbers, the Galaxy, as we've seen right now, are the worst team in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's exciting though, because if he gets that, Alex, because he's got the physical tools. I mean, his comparisons coming out of Uruguay was Manu Ugarte, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good range of
Workhorse.
pass, really, really solid workhorse. And he's got those combative instincts. I mean, I stood next to him, I remember, at the CVI, and he's a bulky lad. Like, he's got a lot of sort of muscle and beef on him. And
He's
you
big
see
bone.
that in the game as well. He covers a lot of ground. So he's not just got the physical stature, but he does cover a lot of ground. So that's really exciting. And again, hopefully Greg and the coaching staff will develop him to a point where those two things, the defensive attributes, but also the offensive instincts, the intelligence, that's going to be super, super exciting. But another thing that's exciting, Alex, is, well, maybe we found our Deki replacement, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, look, we haven't seen much of Nascimento for this first half of the year. He's gotten pretty much garbage minutes up until the last 2 weeks, right? Where,
Yeah.
yeah, he'll make appearances here and there, but it's nothing you can kind of say like you can build off of or judge because it's too small of a sample size. He started 2 games in a row now, and we're seeing the impacts that he's making. Last year we saw Daniel Vlich kind of be a guy who was able to be a fox in the box and also kind of understand when to combine with other players. Again, you have runners like Peck and Painstill, makes your life a lot easier where, you kind of just have to focus on, reading the defense and kind of being at the right place at the right time. Nascimento, during his days at Botafogo, kind of playing in Brazil, he was very much a false nine archetype striker where he's not necessarily hanging out in the box all the time, kind of, looking to add numbers in midfield, kind of looking to, find spaces farther away from goal. And, while the Galaxy definitely, don't play like that with the striker, Greg Vanny and the coaching staff have talked repeatedly about kind of molding him into being that traditional box crashing striker, being a guy who's going to create the most impact in the final third and in the box and not outside of it. So this is going to be a learning curve for Nascimento. But again, we're going to look at some physical tools right now and some intangibles that I really like. And I think it's going to add a little spark to the LA Galaxy and, potentially be what they need to springboard themselves into more points this year.
Yeah. Let's take a look at those physical attributes.
Yeah, so right now we're going to look here at the work rate, right? In his own penalty box, kind of going against Diego Luna, and he just nicks the ball away with ease. And then again, you see that false nine technique where he's kind of able to play that long ball for Peck. A
What
little
a
lucky,
pass.
yes, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, the fact that he had the confidence to play that and kind of, have that ability to play that long range of a pass with really good accuracy is impressive because again, he's doing the dirty work. He's not kind of just standing there hoping that, the ball lands on him. He's actively looking to get the ball. There was a lot of times during his start against San Jose and against Real Salt Lake where, he kind of was, running to goal where he was kind of, sliding, he was putting in challenges, he was, getting his jersey dirty. And I think having energy like that is infectious, especially right now when a team is kind of down in the dumps where, they're in last place. If you have a player who, again, he's not guaranteed to be here next year, and again, he's been struggling to get minutes. When you have a player who's fighting for stuff like that, it's infectious because it shows that someone cares. And if someone cares, then I care. And if the entire, front line is going to be playing defense and the midfield is going to be playing defense, the LA Galaxy collectively is going to get better on the defensive end. They're going to be, working a lot more maybe than we saw earlier this year. And again, we're going to look right now at another thing Nascimento adds, which is, that speed and that physicality. Because Christian Ramirez, while he did have a, good start early in this campaign, he just doesn't seem like quite the right fit. He
Yeah.
doesn't add that extra gear, right? You look here, Nascimento's kind of just staying in one gear, then switches quickly for a darting run, in the box. Sure, the ball gets intercepted. This is no play, but I can't imagine Christian Ramirez doing something like this where he changes gears and look, he just attracts the defense. They have to be conscious of his runs. Christian Ramirez in this, maybe might not be making that run, or he's kind of looking to, be an outlet in possession rather than just be direct, right? And we know Greg Vanny's teams are at their most dangerous and lethal when they're direct. We saw that a lot last year, where in the transition game, this team could eat and feast. That hasn't been the case a lot this year. And I don't want to say that's because Christian Ramirez is lacking that speed and athleticism, but I mean, it helps when you have someone else who's going to make those quick runs and someone that defenses have to keep an eye on because they understand he is going to be quicker, he's going to be faster, compared to Ramirez, where as long as they stay in front of him, he's not a threat and they can focus on whoever's leading the transition, and boom. That's why the Galaxy haven't been as lethal in those moments this year. So I really like that from Nascimento, that he adds that extra gear, adds that extra pace, and overall that extra energy that's needed in the front line, because it's been a very disappointing season. I think more from the attacking than the defensive end, right? We know the
Yeah.
Galaxy backline is, done going through injuries, and there's a lot of things here and there. We've seen some goalkeeper switches throughout the season, but you still have Painter, you still have Peck, you still have Ruiz, right? You have a MLS veteran and Christian Ramirez, and this team just has struggled to create goals consistently. So having Nascimento up there, I think these next couple of games we're going to continue to see him do what he does. And then again, on his goal that we saw earlier from Lucas Sanabria, I mean, that little technique and technical ability to be, play in tight spaces in the box and create for others, like that's
Yeah.
what the Galaxy need. It's no disrespect Christian Ramirez, but I just cannot envision him pulling off a play like that.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it multiple times on the show. I don't think anyone really imagined Christian Ramirez is signing to be that starting number 9. I don't think that was ever the intention. But I'll tell you two things that get me excited about Nacimiento, and these are, I think, big misses that we've had in the first half of the season. Thinking about sort of the system that Greg deploys, and to me, it's really just maximizing. How can you maximize the output and efficiency of your two wingers? I feel like the number 9 in this position is a little bit more of a what's the right word? Just sort of like a they serve a purpose, and they sort of connect, and they can get that final ball in certain situations. But one of the things that Deki did so well last year, Alex, was his combination play, his 1-2s at the edge of the box, his ability to combine with Joseph Paintsel and Mickey Yamane, especially on that right-hand side, as you mentioned, where we like to attack a lot last year, on top of his being fox in the box, right? You think about not only the movements of Joveljic, but you think about even 1v1 situations where he chops it back on his left, hits it with his right for the first goal against LAFC. Those are things that, like you said, I don't think Christian Ramirez really has that ability. Against, not a knock on him. That's not the type of striker he is. For me, Christian Ramirez thrives in a situation where you spam crosses in the box, have him get at the end of it, or you float one in the air and have him just tower over the center back and head it in net, right? But other than that, I think his skill set is just a little bit more limited. Again, that's not a knock to him, but it's just he's a different type of striker versus Nacimiento. He can be that fox in the box. He can give you that little extra bit of quality to create separation from his defender and knock the ball in the net, right? Or set it up like we saw in the first goal there, set up for Sanabria. So again, man, I think those two things that we had in Deki last year, I think he plugs those skill sets really, really well. So can't wait to see what Nasi brings in the second half of the season. And again, guys, let's not forget, he's part of this U22 cycle that really we're trying to refresh that position, right? When we signed Deki, you guys got to remember, he was considered a super sub. He wasn't, his toolkit yet wasn't sharp. He was still developing as a player, as a striker. And I think that's what we're starting to see now with Nacimiento, is the start of that development cycle. And I'm just hoping, again, for our sake, that he develops more quickly rather than not, again, to make this team successful, because you really need him in that number 9 position. But let's talk about another guy that's actually played number 9 this year. He's played a false 9, but is, again, without Riqui Puig and with his absence, I think this guy is going to be a really critical piece to the second half of the season, and that's Marco Reus.
Yeah, look, Royce, we know the injury history, we know the availability issues, but when he's on the pitch, you see that quality and you see that he reads the game at a level above the rest. And it's pretty obvious that the Galaxy are better when there's a healthy Royce than without him. And, during the stretch of matches against Philadelphia, LAFC, right, where he just, and San Diego to some extent, like he was looking good. He looked like quality. He
Yeah.
looked like the Marco Royce that you would have expected last year when the Galaxy signed him, a guy who's going to be able to play make, provide that intelligence on the pitch, and kind of just be that field general in the attack. And right now we're going to look at clips where, Marco Reus still has it. And look, this year, obviously, he's been in and out of the lineup. He has a contract for next year. But look at this clip right here where he's able to kind of, body the defender, keep the ball going, and he allows the play to develop, makes a quick, easy read. And, Nascimento does well to kind of get the pass here. But boom, you get a key pass, you get your striker involved in the game, you get the attack kind of warming up in a way. And, I chose this clip because it shows he still has that physicality to compete and the way to kind of read the game. He's, in a way, I'd compare it to Luka Doncic, right? Where Luka Doncic isn't the most athletic basketball player, but he can slow the game down to his own pace and be able to dominate that way. And not a lot of soccer players are kind of able to do that. We see a lot of players, who are best at being, direct, maybe having one final touch in the box and that being a goal, or players who kind of just want to be all out speed and athleticism. But Royce is one of those players where the game gets better when he slows it down himself, where he's able to kind of read the play, and he's kind of able to be a quarterback in a sense where he reads the defense, he reads the coverages that teams are going to do, and he makes the right decision every time. And we're going to look at a clip like that right now where he kind of slows the play down, where he allows the plays to develop, where he allows the LA Galaxy to score a goal on the road in Philadelphia right here. You kind of see Galaxy win the ball back. He's leading the break. He's not running at full pace, not because, he's slow, but he wants everyone to get involved. He makes the right play for Cuevas, and he gets a great shot where he's able to place it. Yeah, great finish on his end. But, I mean, what Royce does here is spectacular because just the way he's kind of just able to read this play and allow it to develop, right? Instead of kind of just running at the center back, he allows the defense to kind of play its coverage, and he finds a way to expose it. And the Galaxy don't have a player like that without Riqui Puig. Isaiah Parente isn't that guy. Edwin Cerrillo, not really that guy.
Yeah, you're
Sanabria
right.
developing into that guy. Fagundes, I don't know. He's iffy at that, but you don't see a lot of moments where he can kind of set the pace for the game. And that's what Royce does. He sets the pace for himself and for the players around him. Again, this team is at its best when it has its pacey players attacking spaces. And Royce, like we saw in that last clip, he makes the right play. He makes the right decision and allows a speedy player like Cuevas to take advantage of the moment. And again, a great finish from him and place it in the bottom left corner of the goal. And, the Galaxy are scoring goals in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah, man. He's going to be super important, like I said, until Riqui comes back, because he needs to be that technical leader. He needs to be sort of that clinical edge that you need in the final third. I think he's going to provide a lot of it. And good news that, Greg Vanney said today in the media availability that he is going to be available for selection this weekend. So super excited, man, to have him back. But Alex, we talked about a lot. But what do you think is going to be the most important now to the success of the season? We've talked about Sanabria and Cerrillo in that midfield. We talked about Nascimento and his development at striker. We talked about Royce's technical ability. What is it? Is it which one out of those three, or can it be something else?
I think for me, the number one thing you need to see, and the number one reason why you should tune in for the rest of the season, is Lucas Sanabria. Again, the Galaxy really invested in this guy. He was the first guy that they wanted once the transfer window opened. They pursued him for weeks. They really saw what they liked. Again, very raw player who's only played 1 year professional football, yet they were very, persistent in acquiring him from Nacional. And the big thing with him is just, can he build that confidence and start to, play with more freedom? Because a lot of times when I'm watching him, he feels so restricted, not because he's told to, but he's a little shy. He doesn't know what to, I don't want to say he doesn't know what to do, but he might second guess himself at times. He might be like, is this really what I want to do? And excuse me, but I just really think if he can start being aggressive, make those runs, be an outlet for Peck and Yamane when they're playing down the right wing, everything else is going to get better around him. And once Riqui comes back, then the burden of kind of, not having to be that guy making all his runs all the time, he can just focus on just being another cog in the midfield, which is what Mark Delgado was last year, right?
Yeah.
Where teams are going to be focusing on Riqui Puig, double teaming him, because despite his injury, he's still going to have that quality and that, vision to pick out the right player. Sanabria is going to need that confidence to be like, I'm going to go up, I'm going to go crash the box, or I'm going to go on the right wing and kind of help Peck and Yamane kind of break down teams on that end. So I really want to see Sanabria take that next step. And I believe if you start seeing him develop, I think the LA Galaxy fan base, the coaching staff, and the rest of the teammates are going to be delighted because they really believe in this kid. They really want him to succeed, and they genuinely believe he has the tools to be a difference maker for the future.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's tough because I think I half agree with you in that I think he's super important, but it's kind of like a 1A and 1B for me. And I love sitting on the fence, so there you go. But no, I look, not I talked about it earlier in terms of the importance of Nasi's development. Alex, in the 4 games, I think it was 4 or 5 games that Riqui missed in the middle part of last year, Dejan Jovic scored 3 goals and 1 assist. I think we are undervaluing his importance this year. I think we are under indexing just how important that focal point of a number 9 in these attacks. I've always sort of hearkened it or related to he's the tip of the spear, right? So he's the guy that is gonna in certain moments is going to drop back and play those 1-2s and play those intricate triangles on the left or right hand side of the pitch. He's that guy that's going to create space for not only himself but others at the edge of the box. And I just think, like you said, Christian Ramirez hasn't been that guy. And also, you said that it's been our attack that's been missing. It hasn't been our defense. Like our defense, it is what it is, right? We've kind of accepted we're a middle of the road defense, but we showed last year that if you're an elite offense or at least up there in the top 5, like this team has an MLS Cup as a ceiling.
And you have a chance every game.
And you have a chance every game. So I think for me, it's Nasi, man, and just his development. And I think as he develops, I think we're going to see how important that number 9 position has been. I mean, we had Mark Rogandino on earlier this year too, and he says, honestly, like one of the big things that was missing and one of the things that was the problem area for the Galaxy is that number 9 position. We just haven't replaced it, and we're hoping Nasi can fill those big shoes. Another thing I'm going to say too, and this is sort of completely removed from the points that we mentioned, is we've got to remove the stench of losing, man. Like we've got to remove, like, whether it's, I know it's a leadership thing, it's a locker room thing, but we've got to find a way to create sort of a winning culture again, and just remove that stench of losing. Because yes, we're cursed in the first half of the season, but I just felt like if as fans, something's bad is coming, the players are thinking that in the back of their minds. So I'm hoping that this 2-week sabbatical, I'd like to call it, I'm hoping that sort of eases and it provides sort of a level of regeneration for these players. And I'm hoping they can come back sort of mentally strong and put this first half of the season behind them. But guys, what do you think? What do you think is going to be the most important to the G's success? And yeah, for sure, put it in the comments and in the comment section, and we don't have chat, so it's going to be comments.
I'll add
But
one
Alex,
quick thing real quick.
yeah, go for it.
But the Nascimento thing to keep in mind is the Galaxy have a clause to buy him permanently from Botafogo, right? Essentially, you're kind of testing him out. Is he really going to be the guy? So
Yeah.
Galaxy really have to make the decision and really analyze what he does on the pitch. Again, Galaxy need a striker for the future. They're hoping that can be Nascimento. But at the end of the season, there will be a decision that will be made on whether or not the Galaxy want to be able to activate him. I mean, he's already given the number 9 shirt already, right? They view him as potentially being that. Nonetheless, though, you still have to show up. You still have to be able to prove that you can be that guy. And I think if we are still questioning if the Galaxy should purchase him at the end of the year, then he probably didn't pass that test. I think at the end of the season, if you can say, yeah, Nascimento is the guy, and he looks like he's a guy that you can build your future off of, that'll be a success for him, for the Galaxy, and I think for everybody to kind of know you are seeing the genesis of the Galaxy's next number 9 for years to come.
Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, guys, let us know in the comment section again what you think is going to be the most important to the G success for not only the rest of this year, but into 2026. But for now, we're going to sign off. So Alex, always a pleasure doing yet another episode of Gatacticos, and hopefully we'll do another one soon. Again, if you like this type of content, want us to do more, let us know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment, giving us some feedback. We'd really, really appreciate it. But of course, Alex, before we sign off, go ahead and remind the folk where they can engage with you online, and let us know what you got going on in the Galactic Tribune in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so we're going to, despite the losing, we're still going to keep you covered on the LA Galaxy. I think it's going to be really exciting second half of the season. As me and Nana kind of talked about, some players we really want to see step up, some players we want to see kind of develop, and maybe we see glimpses of what could be in 2025. So yeah, you can find my written work at thegalactictribune.org. And you can also find me on Twitter X at ALXRuiz15.
Awesome. And for Alex Ruiz, my name is Ananda Kirana, one half of Cuna Galaxiana. We'll be back for another episode again soon. To know when the next show is, again, guys, Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit those notification bells, and follow us on all of our socials at La Cuna Galaxiana. And remember to take care and stay safe. But until next time, guys, take care, y'all, and G's up.